when a 10-year-old boy crouched behind the back tire of a lifted Chevy Silverado in a Walmart parking lot, looked up at the man who owned the truck and said, "She told me to run, so I ran, and your truck was the biggest thing I could hide behind." The man looking down at him was a 6'3" former Army Ranger with a voice like gravel and a heart that broke exactly once that afternoon, when the boy said the word "she" and started shaking. Because she wasn't a stranger. She was his older sister. And the reason she told him to run was because she couldn't. The Walmart Supercenter on Corridor G in South Charleston, West Virginia, was one of those Walmarts that never slept. Open 24 hours, packed from morning to midnight, the kind of store where you went for groceries and came out 2 hours later with a ceiling fan, a fishing rod, and no idea how it happened. Saturday afternoon, 4:15 p.m. The parking lot was a mess, every row full, shopping carts rolling loose in the wind, families loading trunks, trucks double-parked near the garden center. Knox Wheeler was loading lumber into the bed of his truck when he heard breathing. Not talking, not crying, just breathing. Fast, ragged, the kind of breathing that comes from running hard and then trying to be silent. He stopped, set the 2x4s down on the tailgate, walked to the back of the truck. A boy was crouched behind the rear passenger tire, pressed against the wheel well, arms wrapped around his knees, making himself as small as possible. Dark blonde hair, dirty jeans, a t-shirt that was 2 sizes too big and hanging off one shoulder. He was shaking, not from cold. It was 78 degrees. He was shaking from something else. Knox was 45 years old, a general contractor who'd been building houses in Kanawha County for 18 years. Before that, he'd spent 8 years in the Army, 2 tours, Ranger Battalion, the kind of service that teaches you to read a situation in under 3 seconds. He rode as road captain for the Kanawha Iron MC, a 16-member club in the Charleston area. Big guy, thick, dark beard with gray at the jaw, forearms covered in ink, the kind of man who looked like he could fold a car door in half, but talked to his daughter on the phone every night in a voice so soft his club brothers gave him grief about it. Subscribe to Asphalt Angels and hit that notification bell, because this story starts with a boy hiding behind a tire and ends with a parking lot full of people who refuse to look away. "Hey!" Knox kept his voice low, didn't crouch down, didn't want to crowd the kid, just stood there, hands visible. "You okay?" The boy looked up. His eyes were red. He'd been crying before Knox found him, but he wasn't crying now. He was past crying. He was in the phase after crying where everything goes flat and the body shuts down everything except the part that keeps you hidden. "She told me to run, so I ran. Your truck was the biggest thing I could hide behind." "Who told you to run?" "My sister, Jessa. She's still inside, with Ray." "Who's Ray?" "My mom's boyfriend." The boy said those 3 words the way you'd say the name of a disease. Flat, factual. Like he'd explained this before and nobody had done anything about it, and the explaining had become its own kind of exhaustion. "She told me to go. She said run and don't stop and find someone big. So I ran." "What's your name?" "Colton. Colton Adkins. I'm 10. "Colton, where's your mom?" "Working. She works at the Cracker Barrel on McCorkle. She gets off at 6. Ray was supposed to take us shopping for school clothes. He was in a bad mood when he picked us up. He's always in a bad mood. He was being rough with Jessa in the store, grabbing her arm. She kept pulling away, and he kept grabbing harder. Nobody said anything. Nobody in the whole store said anything. People just walked past like they didn't see it." Knox felt his jaw tighten. "How old is Jessa?" 14. "And she told you to run?" "She always tells me to run. When things get bad, she tells me to go. She puts herself between me and Ray, and she tells me to go somewhere safe. She's been doing it since Ray moved in. That was 2 years ago. She's been protecting me for 2 years, and nobody protects her. If this story has touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Asphalt Angels. Because a 14-year-old girl told her little brother to run, and then stayed behind so he could get away. And that's the kind of bravery that doesn't get medals, but deserves them. Knox pulled his phone out. "Colton, I'm going to call 911. Then, I'm going to go inside and find your sister. You're going to stay right here by my truck. Can you do that?" He's going to say I'm lying. He does that. He tells people I have anger problems and I make things up. He's really good at it. He smiles and he talks like a normal person. And then when we get home, "Colton." Knox said it firm but gentle, the voice he used when his 7-year-old daughter was spiraling. "I don't care what he says. I care what you're telling me. And I believe you. Okay?" The boy's chin trembled, not because he was scared, because someone had just said the words he'd been waiting 2 years to hear. "You believe me?" "Yeah, kid, I believe you." Knox dialed 911 as he walked toward the Walmart entrance. "I'm at the Walmart on Corridor G in South Charleston. A 10-year-old boy just told me he ran from his mother's boyfriend inside the store. The boy says the boyfriend was being physically rough with his 14-year-old sister. The boy is hiding behind my truck in the parking lot. The sister is still inside with the boyfriend. His name is Ray. I'm heading in to find the girl. My name is Knox Wheeler." "Sir, can you describe the boyfriend?" "Negative. I haven't seen him yet. The boy's name is Colton Adkins. The sister is Jessa, age 14. The mother's boyfriend is named Ray. That's all I have. I'm going in." "Sir, I'd advise you to wait for... There's a 14-year-old girl in there with a man who's hurting her. I'm not waiting." If you're watching this story, hit that hype button right now. It's free, takes 1 second, and helps these stories reach the people who need them. Now, back to the story. Knox walked into the Walmart. Saturday crowd, packed aisles, families everywhere, the rumble of carts and the overhead music and the beeping of self-checkout registers. He moved through the store the way he'd been trained to clear a building, systematic, methodical, checking each aisle without rushing. He texted the Kanawha Iron group chat while he walked. "Walmart Corridor G kid hiding behind my truck says his sister's inside with an abusive boyfriend. Need eyes in the parking lot with the boy. Anyone close?" Burl, the club president, a plumber who lived 10 minutes away, responded first. "Rolling." Then Dutch from across the river. 15 minutes. Then Sawyer from Sissonville. "On my way." Knox found them in the clothing section, back corner near the fitting rooms, where the aisles were narrow and the Saturday crowd thinned out. A man, mid-30s, stocky, shaved head, wearing a mountaineer's hoodie, was standing over a girl. The girl had her back to a rack of clearance jackets. She was holding a shopping basket in front of her body like a shield. Not because it would stop anything, because it was the only thing between her and him. The man's hand was on the clothing rack above her head, leaning over her, his face close to hers. He was talking low, too low for Knox to hear, but the girl's face told the story. She was terrified. She was also completely still, not flinching, not pulling away, not crying. Standing perfectly still, the way you stand when you've learned that movement, makes it worse. Knox walked up, not fast, not aggressive, just a man walking down an aisle in Walmart with a cart-free hand and a ranger's calm. "Everything all right here?" Ray straightened up, turned, looked at Knox, the size, the beard, the tattoos, the vest, did the math, adjusted. "We're fine, man, just shopping." A smile. Easy. Practiced. The kind of smile Colton had described. Normal. Friendly. The mask. Wasn't asking you. Knox looked at the girl. Jessa? The girl's eyes widened. She didn't know this man. She didn't know how he knew her name. She looked from Knox to Ray, and back to Knox, and her lips moved but nothing came out. Ray's smile tightened. How do you know her name? Your son told me. He's not my… Ray caught himself, recalculated. Colton's outside? He wanders off. He's got behavioral issues. I'll go get him. No, you won't. Excuse me? You're going to stay right here. Colton is safe. He's in the parking lot. He told me what's been happening and I called the police. They're on their way. The mask dropped. Not all at once. It crumbled. The friendly smile went first, then the easy posture, then the reasonable voice. What was left underneath was a man who realized he'd lost control of the situation, and the only tools he had were the tools he used on children, and those tools didn't work on a 6'3" Army Ranger in a leather vest. You don't know what you're talking about. Those kids lie about everything. Their mother isn't here. You are. They are. And a 10-year-old boy is shaking behind my truck because his sister told him to run from you. That's all I need to know. Ray looked at the aisle, looked at the fitting room hallway, looked at the exit sign above the back of the store. Knox saw the look. He'd seen that same look in Afghanistan, the look of a man calculating his exit. Don't, Knox said. Ray ran, not toward Knox, toward the back of the store, past the fitting rooms, toward the emergency exit by the loading dock. Knox didn't chase him. He stayed with Jessa, because the girl was standing against that clothing rack with the shopping basket still in front of her body, and she hadn't moved, and she wasn't going to move until someone told her it was safe. Jessa, my name is Knox. Your brother Colton is outside by my truck. He's safe. He told me to find you. The police are coming. Ray just ran. He's gone. She didn't move, didn't speak. Just stood there, holding the basket, looking at Knox like she was trying to determine if this was real, or if this was another situation where an adult said they'd help and then nothing happened. Is Colton really okay? He's really okay. He's sitting behind my truck eating. Actually, I don't know what he's eating, but he's there and he's safe. The smallest crack of a smile, gone as fast as it came. Then her arms started shaking and the shopping basket rattled against the rack, and she set it down carefully. Carefully, like the basket mattered, like everything had to be done carefully because careful was how she'd survived. And she sat down on the floor between the clearance jackets and the shelf of folded jeans, and she put her face in her hands. If Asphalt Angels has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. Just a couple bucks a month keeps these stories coming. Links below. Now, back to the ending. Knox didn't touch her, didn't try to comfort her. He sat down on the floor across from her, his back against the opposite shelf, his knees up because the aisle was narrow and he was too big for the space, and he just sat there. Present. Not pushing, not asking questions. Just the biggest, most heavily tattooed man in the Walmart, sitting on the linoleum floor of the clearance section, waiting for a 14-year-old girl to feel safe enough to breathe. A Walmart associate appeared at the end of the aisle. Sir, is everything… Police are coming. Can you make sure nobody comes down this aisle? Yes, okay. 2 South Charleston officers arrived in 6 minutes. Burl was already in the parking lot with Colton, standing next to Knox's truck, the boy sitting on the tailgate now instead of hiding behind the tire. Dutch rolled in 3 minutes later. Sawyer after that. By the time the officers entered the store, there were 3 bikers in the parking lot with Colton, and the boy had stopped shaking. The officers found Knox and Jessa still sitting on the floor of the clearance section. Jessa was talking now. Quiet, steady, The way someone talks when they've been holding a story inside for 2 years and the seal finally breaks. She told the officer about Ray. Not the details, not the specifics that would make a YouTube algorithm flag a video, but the reality. 2 years. It started small. It escalated. She'd learned to put herself between Ray and Colton because Colton was smaller and younger, and she could take it and he couldn't. She'd learned which moods were safe and which weren't. She'd learned to read Ray's face the way other 14-year-olds read text messages, constantly, carefully, looking for signals. I told Colton to run today because Ray was getting worse and we were in a public place, and I thought if Colton was outside, at least he'd be safe. I didn't have a plan for me. I just had a plan for him. "You've been doing that a long time?" the officer asked. "Since I was 12, 2 years. Every time it happened, I made sure Colton was somewhere else first. That was my only rule. Get Colton out, then deal with whatever happens." 14 years old, and her only rule for 2 years had been to save her brother first. Ray Dylan Casto was picked up 40 minutes later at a gas station on Route 60, 3 miles from the Walmart. He'd run out the emergency exit, crossed the back parking lot, and jogged to the gas station where he'd called someone for a ride. The ride never came. The police did. Charges included 2 counts of assault of a minor, child endangerment, and fleeing the scene. The investigation that followed added more charges when Jessa and Colton were interviewed properly, in a safe room, with a trained forensic interviewer, with their mother present. Shelby Adkins, Colton and Jessa's mother, arrived at the Walmart at 5:45 p.m. She'd left her shift early when the police called. She was still in her Cracker Barrel uniform, black pants, apron stuffed in her back pocket, name tag still on. She pulled into the parking lot and saw the police cars and the 3 motorcycles, and her hands gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white. She saw Colton first, sitting on the tailgate of Knox's truck between 2 bikers, eating a bag of Doritos that someone had bought him from the vending machine. He looked up when her car pulled in, and he slid off the tailgate and walked toward her. Didn't run. Walked. The walk of a kid who was done being scared and was now just tired and wanted his mom. "Colton." She dropped to one knee on the asphalt. "Baby, are you okay?" "I'm okay, Mom. The big guy believed me. The big guy with the truck. He believed me, and he went inside and got Jessa." "Where's Jessa?" "Inside, with the police." "Mom, Ray was hurting her. He's been hurting her." "She didn't tell you because I didn't tell you because he said..." "I know, baby, I know." She pulled him in, held him on the parking lot asphalt with the late afternoon sun cutting between the parked cars. "I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see it." A police officer brought Jessa out 10 minutes later. Jessa walked through the automatic doors and stopped. She saw her mother holding Colton in the parking lot. She saw the bikers. She saw Knox standing by his truck, and she stood perfectly still in front of the Walmart entrance, the same stillness she'd had in the clothing section, the same careful, controlled stillness, until Colton looked up and said, "Jessa, come here." And Jessa walked to them, not fast, careful, every step measured. And when she reached them, she didn't collapse or cry or fall apart. She sat down next to her mother on the asphalt and put her arm around Colton and her head on her mother's shoulder, and she said, "I kept him safe, Mom. Every time. I kept him safe." "I know you did," Shelby whispered, "but you shouldn't have had to." "Someone had to. It should have been me. From now on, it's me. Okay? That's my job, not yours. You're 14. You're supposed to worry about school and friends and being 14, not about keeping your brother alive. I don't know how to stop. Then we'll figure it out together." Knox watched from the truck. Burl was next to him, arms crossed, quiet, Dutch was sitting on his bike with his helmet on the tank. None of them said anything. 3 men who'd built careers out of being loud and taking up space, standing silent in a Walmart parking lot while a mother held her children on the ground. Shelby found Knox before she left. Jessa and Colton were in the car, belted in, Colton in the back already falling asleep the way kids do when the adrenaline finally burns off. Colton said you believed him. First thing he said was, "She told me to run." Didn't need to hear anything else. A lot of people would have heard that and called security, or told him to go back inside, or assumed he was playing around. You know what the Walmart greeter said when Colton ran past him? He said, "No running in the store." My kid was running for his life, and a grown man told him to slow down. Knox didn't say anything to that. There wasn't anything to say. People have looked at my kids and not seen what was happening. His teachers, our neighbors, me. Her voice cracked on that last word. I was working doubles to keep the lights on, and I missed it. I missed all of it. My daughter has been stepping in front of my son for 2 years, and I didn't know. What does that say about me? It says you were working. It says you were trying to keep them fed. It says the person who should have been helping was the person doing the hurting, and that's not your fault. It feels like my fault. I know it does. It won't always. She didn't hug Knox. She shook his hand. Firm. The handshake of a woman who was done being soft about things that required being hard. Thank you for believing my son, and thank you for going inside for my daughter. Jessa was the brave one. She told Colton to run, and she stayed. She was willing to take whatever happened so her brother could get out. That's not something you teach a kid. That's something a kid just is. The Kanawha Iron MC started a program called Run and Tell, named for what Jessa told Colton to do, and what Colton did. The program put bright orange information cards in Walmarts, grocery stores, and parking lots across Kanawha County. The card read, "If a child runs to you, stop, listen, believe, call 911. You might be the only adult who does." 2 years later, Jessa was 16 and in her junior year at South Charleston High. She ran track, the 400 meters, the one that requires pacing yourself through pain and finishing strong. Her coach said she was the most disciplined runner he'd ever had. She never complained during training, never quit a rep, never slowed in the final 100 meters when every other runner's form broke down. "Where'd you learn to push through pain like that?" her coach asked once. "Practice," Jessa said. And she didn't mean track practice. She ran the 400 at the regional meet that spring and won by 3 seconds. When she crossed the finish line, Colton was in the stands screaming her name, and Shelby was standing next to him crying, and Knox was in the back row with Burl because the club had made it a point to show up for Jessa's meets ever since the Walmart. After the race, a reporter from the local paper asked Jessa what running meant to her. "When I was 12, running meant something was wrong," she said. "Now it means I'm fast. That's it. I'm just fast." Colton was 12 and had stopped flinching when adults raised their voices. It took a year of therapy and a mother who came home every night now instead of working doubles. Shelby had taken a day shift job at the hospital. Less money, more time. She said the math was different now. "I used to think keeping the lights on was the most important thing. It's not. Being home is. The lights don't matter if your kids are sitting in the dark anyway." Colton still talked about the truck. In therapy, in school essays, in conversations with Knox when the club came around for community events. He talked about how the tire was warm from the sun, and the asphalt was rough under his knees, and the truck smelled like sawdust and diesel. He remembered every detail of those 5 minutes behind the tire, because those 5 minutes were the bridge between the old life and the new one. "I picked your truck because it was the biggest thing in the parking lot. Colton told Knox at a Kanawha Iron cookout. I figured whoever drove that truck was big enough to help. What if it had been some little Honda? Then I would have kept running until I found a truck. Knox laughed. First real laugh he'd had about that day. Smart kid. Jessa taught me. She said if you need help, find the biggest person you can. She said big people are harder to argue with. Knox still parked in the same spot at that Walmart every time he went. Same row, same section, near the garden center. Not because he was looking for another kid behind his tire, because that spot reminded him that the biggest thing in a parking lot isn't always a truck. Sometimes it's the moment you decide to believe a scared kid instead of walking past. Be the one who stops, believes, and goes inside. Thank you for watching this story. If it reminded you that a 14-year-old girl who says run to her brother and stays behind is the definition of bravery, please share it. Subscribe to Asphalt Angels for more stories proving that the adults who stop and listen are the ones who change everything. Tell us in the comments, would you have gone inside?